Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul. I don't know if that's like a real thing, but I know that in the past I have posted one of these. Like, this is something I've done before. And while I was in college, I was like depressed because I was away from home. And I would like buy books. A book talk was like, these are so good, these are easy reads. And they were always bad. They're always bad. I will never take TikTok recommendations again unless I'm like doing deep research about a book. And so I have a ton of books that I've read and I hate them and they need to go. And I'm going to be taking them to half-price books and be getting money. Then I'm going to be buying good books. That's my goal. I only have 6 books here today, and only 4 of them fall in the category of like Book Talk recommended them to me. But it's a problem I face, but like some of the books that like Book Talk recommended to me that I hated were I just read on my Kindle, so I don't like own them or anything, so I'm like not getting rid of them. But I'm literally just gonna talk about them in the order that I have them stacked. Like there's no specific order I'm talking about them in, and I have talked about a few of these in my tier list video, so I'm not gonna go like super in depth. But yeah, let's just get into it, you know? So the first book I have is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, and I know a lot of people love this book. I know a lot of people love this book and think it's a good romance. I think this book is awful. I don't like this book. It has a lot of tropes that I just don't like. And like the whole point is like, she's so short and he's so tall, and like that's all they talk about. And like, yes, some of these you're gonna see, I did annotate these. Or I tabbed them, which I'm gonna have to take out, which is kind of annoying. I think this is like enemies to lovers. It's like not really, but like, I don't know, any of those where they're like literally legitimately mean to each other, I just don't like it. Like I don't like it. And like, there's like a gross quote in it that I talked about in the tier list that I didn't put in my video then. I'm not going to put it in now, but I literally can't stand this book. I was so excited to read this because I actually really do love romance, but a lot of, okay, especially romance books, I'm not going to take suggestions from TikTok. They just are bad. Like I literally just do not like them. And like, if you like them, good for you. I just don't like them. They're like completely against everything I like. Like the only good romance like recommendations I've gotten is probably like Emily Henry. Like I love Emily Henry, but I recently saw someone say, and I don't remember who it was, I'm sorry, they said that Emily Henry is more like literary fiction with romance subplot, and I agree. I completely agree. I love Emily Henry books, but I just don't like this book. I just really don't. I'm sorry. It's like one of those books that people love or they hate, and I literally hate it. And every time I see someone, oh, this is such hater behavior of me, but like every time I see someone recommend this on TikTok, I block them. And it's like nothing to do with you. Like I just don't want their recommendations to come up because I'm like, we're not the same type of people. You know, I block a lot of people on TikTok for my own enjoyment. I'm trying to curate my little For You page. So yeah, this book is just, it's gotta go. Okay, we're gonna go on a little Colleen Hoover hook. Hook. Okay, these are all the books I read. Actually, I've read 4 Colleen Hoover books, and worst books I've read. You know, this is what Book Talk did to me. They made me think that these were good, and they're not good. I think they perpetuate such, like, okay, I don't think they're good, but like I think you have a right to read like whatever you want, and like even if I think the writing's bad, like, and you like it, like, good for you. I think they perpetuate such bad stereotypes, and like, yes, she has some books where the guys are supposed to be bad, but then some of them, like, they're not supposed to be bad, but they're literally awful people. And I feel very uncomfortable like about young people reading those books and like getting the wrong ideas. So this is my first one, All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. What's this one? This is probably like, I don't hate this one as much. It's still probably a 1. But I feel like I don't hate this one as much as like the other ones I'm gonna talk about. Like it was fine. I don't like the writing, and I think a lot, like the guy is just like, there's always times the guy is like toxic. Like it's just not good. And I'll say this is a spoiler. Skip to this time if you don't want to be spoiled by this book. The fact that he like cheats on her and then he like blames it on her. Like he's like, well, our marriage wasn't going well, so I wanted something to make it bad. Don't even try with me. The cheating trope to begin with, immediately done. And so him like being like, well, it's your fault, was pissed me off. And then they stayed together. I hate the toxic men in Colleen Hoover's book. Like Colleen Hoover, the men she writes are literally the scum of the earth. I hate every single one of them. You cannot convince me I like any of them. And I've read 4, so you can't tell me I haven't tried. I have tried, okay? But this one is like not the worst, but I'm getting rid of it. It's honestly probably one of my favorite Colleen Hoover covers too, because I think a lot of them are ugly. But I'm like such a hater of covers. Like there's books I love that I think the covers are really ugly. Like I judge a book by its cover. I really do. And so there's some books I will talk about that I love that I hate the cover of. So this isn't even me just being nitpicky. I just hate the covers of her books, okay? Okay, next Colleen Hoover book, Ugly Love, which if you didn't watch my tier listing video, I think that's where I talked about it, yeah. I don't remember reading this book. In my mind, I didn't read this book. This book was so unmemorable for me that I just don't remember reading it. Like I said before, like I can go to these annotations that I literally did and still not remember this book. And every time I hear someone talk more and more about it, the less and less I'm like, I literally didn't read this book. Like this book is not in my brain. This book did not happen to me. I do not remember reading this book. I couldn't even tell you like when I read this book, like what timeline I read this book, like when. There's a lot of things in this book I don't like because like he's like dating his like stepsister. I don't know if that's true or he was. And then they like say a weird thing about their baby and then the baby dies. I don't know, okay? This book is crazy, but I don't recommend these books. I literally didn't read this book. So like this book has just got to get out of my life because this is just, it drives me insane that like I read these and like these are not people that are like in my head. Like it was so unmemorable for me, which like some of these I remember because they traumatized me. This is just like so unmemorable, like I don't even know. Literally could not tell you. Like I could not have a discussion about this book. I don't remember this book. This book did not happen in my world. Okay. Last Colleen Hoover book, and this is the one I'll have the most to talk about because I have so many nuances to this book. It ends with us. All I have to say is, oh, I'm gonna have to bleep that. I stand by it though because, okay, so at first when I started hating this book, because at first I was like, actually we're not gonna get there yet, but at first when I started hating this book, I was like, it's not Colleen Hoover's fault, but like so many people were recommending this book as if it was a romance when this book is about domestic abuse. So that's one thing. But now I do blame Colleen Hoover because that woman, she, one was like, let's make a coloring book out of this book that's about domestic abuse. I feel like she's so out of touch with reality. And so I think she does hold responsibility for this book because no one talks about it enough. This book has so many trigger warnings. And I went into this book thinking it was a fun, happy romance because that's what people are like, oh, it's a fun romance with a twist. Abuse is not a twist. It's not a fun twist in your book. And so I went into this book not reading the trigger warnings. You know what that did for me? Ruined my life. And in my TBR book, I said, this book ruined my life in the best way. This book ruined my life in the worst way. It literally it put me in a depressive hole. Like genuinely, not exaggerating. I was reading this book and I got to page whatever, 140 whatever, when he's like, he hits her. Literally ruined my life. And like the way it's described is so crazy. It's so like realistic. And at first I was like, maybe I like this book because she did do a good job at like, at first I was like, she did do a good job at like portraying what like domestic abuse is like and like the gaslighting that goes along with that and like everything like that. But then the moment that this switch happened, because I already was like, didn't really care about the flashbacks nor like the letters to Ellen. I was already like, that's kind of weird, cringy. But I was like, I can get over that. Then I realized she announced a second book. And I was like, now in what world does this universe need a second book? Because it doesn't. It doesn't need a second book. And it should have ended here. But she wants to keep going with the romance, the secondary romance that happened. Who cares about the romance? It doesn't matter. The romance doesn't matter because this poor woman is abused. And then we're going to keep him in her life, which is a common thing that happens because abusers usually aren't punished. But we're going to keep him in her life, keep him tormenting her, and keep him taking care of his kid. Just so you can have a fun little happy romance between her and her ex. And then the coloring book, and then the movie. It's just, it pisses me off. This book angers me so deeply, and this book triggered me so bad. And usually I'm pretty fine. Usually I don't have to look at trigger warnings for things. Like, I will like feel a little bit, but like usually I'm like fine, like it'll be okay. I can still read it, I can still watch it, whatever. This was so bad, and I think I didn't realize that like the like awful stereotypes and things that she put in this book at first, because I was like, oh, I just feel this way because it was triggering. But like, no, this was so bad. Like, this is so awful. Like, literally so awful. And like, the reason I know this is because I watched The Maid, which has very similar trigger warnings, if you don't know. And yes, I watched that and I felt kind of like icky afterwards, but I like was like, they did such a good job. Like, this is so good. This is like, obviously it's someone's real life story, so obviously it's like, they portrayed it well. But like, comparing those two where they have like similar tropes, it's not a trope, it's like a real life thing, but like, you know what I mean? Like, this book sucks. I'm so sorry. I really hate this book. I wish this book didn't exist. I wish the second one didn't exist. Every time I see this book in its new edition with its hardcover, and I get irrationally angry. Like, I get so upset because this book literally, like, I was reading this book and the second I got to that part, and if you read the book, you know what I mean. I literally went like this, put the book down, put my head in my hands, and immediately was like, this is the worst experience of my life. But at that point, I'm so bad at not finishing books. I'm like, I need to finish it. I was put in the worst, like, I was already not doing good in college. And then I read this book. This triggered me so bad. And I was 10 times worse than I was before. Also, some of the times it felt like, and I understand, like, this book is Colleen Hoover's, like, reimagining, like, her, like, what happened with her mom, but like, I just think that a lot of this was put in the book and it's like used as a shock factor when this is like real life, happens to real people, like, and I think it's so irresponsible to allow this book to be continually pushed as a romance book on TikTok. And I understand that she's like not necessarily pushing it as romance. I don't think she's doing a good job at pushing it as what it is anyway, but that's something you have to shut down, because this book, people should not be going to this book blindly. I hate this book, and I know a lot of people will be like, well, it's your fault for not looking up trigger warnings. And even besides that, I think this book portrayed everything awfully. And I think this book is horrible. And I don't think anyone should read this book. And I think the movie should be canceled. Sue me. Okay, next book, one that I'm not like heated about or anything, I'm sad about, but this was one of my physical books I wanted to read this year, Never Been Kissed by Timothy Janovsky. I actually DNF'd this book, which I don't really ever do. That's not common for me at all. I tried. I think I got to page like 50 and I couldn't do it. And like I said before, I picked this book up because the back sounds basically the same as To All the Boys I Loved Before, which I love that movie. I've talked about that in like my last 4 videos. I love that movie so much. And I was like, this is so perfect. I'm gonna read this. I'm so excited about this. And it really, like, I was physically cringing. Just, I'm like one of those people that I don't like super modern things to be in books anyway. Like, if they're talking about specific social media stuff, I just don't like that. I think it takes me out of like the world. So there was a lot of things that were cringy to me, but like the one thing that really got me is this paragraph. This is when I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna, and this is only on page 8. This is when I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. The bee in the silver 3B on our blue apartment door is hanging on by a single slender nail. Right now, I can't help but feel like I'm that bee. A bad bitch, seconds away from free fall. What's going to push me over the edge? That paragraph made me sick. It made me cringe and I just couldn't go on. I just like immediately was like, I don't really like the characters that much. And there's other like really cringy things that I didn't like. That was just like the one that I like really made me be like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. Like, I don't think this is gonna happen. And so I had to DNF this book, which is really sad. I just think, especially because I don't know if I've said this, I've been in a reading slump this whole year. Like, I barely read. There was a time where I was reading a ton of Yona of the Dawn, but those are easy reads since they're manga. And I was reading a ton of that, but like, I've been in such a reading slump, and I was like, if I finish this book, it's gonna make it so much worse. Like, I was like physically cringing. Like, I was sitting there, and like, I could see people liking this book. Like, I think the concept's super cute, and I just like, when I don't like one of the main characters, like, I have such a hard time like connecting with the book. And there's been so very few times where I can read a book where I just don't like the main character. Like, I'm just so picky and I'm just such a big hater, and that's what it is. Like, I don't have like a disgust for this book like the other books I've talked about. It's just like, I just can't do it. Like, this is just not a book I can do. This is just not gonna happen for me. And so I'm just gonna donate this. And I'm sure someone else will like it. Like, I'm sure someone else will have a good time reading it. And it was just not for me. I just really couldn't do it. Really couldn't do it. And I do think it was probably amplified by me like being in a book slump, but I would always have thought it was cringy. There was a world where I would have finished it otherwise, but I just couldn't do it. I do like how floppy this book is. Okay, last book, which this is like kind of a hot take, but this Tuesdays with Mori by Mitch Albom. I have read this book twice, actually. I've had to read it twice for school. I read it once in 8th grade, and then I read it once senior year of high school for my AP Lang class. And I don't know, I see why people like this book, okay? And I understand why people take a lot away from this book. But to me, this book is just not like, what's the word I'm looking for? This book is just not like extraordinarily, like, it doesn't have like as much life lessons that I feel like people say. Like, I just didn't take anything away from this book. And like I said, I can see why other people do, and that's why another reason why, like, I feel like me giving this away, like, people like this book, people like people buy this book. I just don't like this book. I just can't do this book. I will never read again. First of all, I've read it twice already, and I already didn't like really take any like big life lessons away. I have not really taken much from this book at all. And so I just think it will be better off in other hands, and that's all I have to say about it. Like, I don't have anything like really to say. Hold on, there's another one. Okay, so this might be the one that makes people the most upset, and I completely forgot about this book. I was so excited to read this book. The book I'm gonna be getting rid of, Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I know, I know that there's like, so many people love this book, and I can understand. It's like one of those things, like, I was reading and it's like, I can understand why people like it. It's just not for me. First of all, the lack of quotation marks, it was too much for me, I'll say that. But the reason I picked this book up was because it was the specific quote. This is the reason I picked up the book, which made me think that this book was going to be something completely different. So maybe it's my fault. Marianne, he said, "I'm not a religious person, but I do sometimes think God made you for me." And I was like, that is such a cute quote. Like, this is going to be such a cute romance book. And this book is just not a romance book. And I do think that that's like partially my fault, and I should have looked into it. And like, I wouldn't really, okay, I guess it is a romance book, but it's just not in the way that I thought it was. And I don't want to say anything and spoil it, but I think it's one of those books that people are going to love it or they're going to hate it, and I just don't like it. It just is, it falls in the same category as me as, like, Perks of Being a Wallflower. I like Perks of Being a Wallflower better, but it's, like, one of those books where it's, like, I can tell why people really love this book, I just don't. And it was just that for me, and it was just, like, I don't know. I, like, love the cover, though. I think the cover is so cute. I just can't do it, and I just think, I don't know. I just didn't like it, okay? And, like, it's not for me, and I can understand why it's for other people, but it's just gotta go, because it's not getting love here. So like, someone else should have it, and then they can like read it and have a good time. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you to everyone who stayed around today. I hope you guys have been enjoying these book videos. I have been enjoying making them, except I haven't been reading, so it kind of does feel like I'm a fraud. Like, I do genuinely feel like a fraud. But yeah, thank you again to everyone who stayed around, and I will see you all next time. Bye!